demonstrations that we're doing. In order to do that, I guess what I'll do first is I'll bring Marcia. You could maybe come out and help me, and Eric. We'll demonstrate a thing that we call the Sundance generator. Now, this is the Sundance generator right here. Actually, you know, maybe we could get some more help here, Rick, and we could turn it again. Do you think that would be a good idea? Can we turn it again? Because they can't really see the front end of it and see the most unique parts of this. So we're going to start turning it. While they're turning it, if we have a couple of other people, is there Terry, Mark, could you help them turn this? If you could help them turn this around, I appreciate it. Okay, while they're turning that, I'll tell you about it. This is the world's most unique generator because each one of these right here is a module. So we have a module inside. You can pull the module out, you can put the module in. This is sort of like the old fuse box. Do you remember the old fuse box where you took the fuse out and you put a fuse back in? So if your fuse blew, you just took one out and put it in. This would be like a fuse when you have a fuse blow. Now, it's kind of interesting because what is in here is windings. So all generators have windings. So they got these windings, and what happens to a generator if the windings break? You throw it away. What else can you do? That's it. It stops. Windings broke. Now it's a disposable generator. Throw that one away. Get another one online. Maybe it would be worth it to take it back and rewind it and rework the whole thing. Got to take it down. That's it. Well, this generator right here is the most flexible to repair generator in the world because as you're rolling along, you have 30 of these modules inside, and each of them have windings. They are the windings of the generator. Now, it doesn't need all 30 of them to be able to produce electricity. If you have one of them in there, you can make electricity. So if you make 1 kilowatt of electricity on one module, and you have 30 modules, how many kilowatts of electricity can you make? 30 kilowatts. And so if you had one of these, the windings broke, it got hot, the windings broke on it, and you were going to replace it, what would happen is a little LED light comes on and it says, hey, I'm broken. And then the customer would come out, just merely pull that straight out like you would a fuse in a fuse box, set it down, pick up another one, sit it right back in there again, and you would be repairing this generator while it is operating. You wouldn't shut it off. It'd be making 29K, and then it'd be making 30K again. 28K if 2 of them were broken out, and then it'd be making 30K again. So this generator is the most serviceable generator in the world, bar nothing. Also, this generator has all these different units, and so when you've repaired every one of these units, then you've got a brand new generator. We believe these modules will last for a 20-year period of time before any of them break, but anytime along the line that they break, you just pop one in. Now, we're going to run this generator for you. When we run it, we're going to run it at a very low RPM. The reason why is because, as our electrical engineer explains, in this building right here, we have a different power situation than we need to power this unit. We're running it with a 40 horsepower regular conventional motor. The primary reason is because our Hummingbird motor, this little motor over here, we had our 10 horsepower model here, and the guy who is working with us, who we finance, who is developing that motor, just had to drive all the way 2,000 miles here with our 50 horsepower motor, and he didn't make it earlier. So he just got in, actually, as a matter of fact, an hour ago, and he's a little bit tired from 39 or 40 hours of straight continuous driving. He is here, and we will run the 50 horsepower motor, but we don't have time to hook it up to this and run it with that. But you'll see the concept, believe me. And you'll imagine that this big 40 horsepower motor on here will be replaced with the 50 horsepower motor in the back. And when you see the size of the motor that's 40 and you see the size of the one that replaces it that's 50, believe me, you will realize that we got the most unique motor in the world. Anyway, just to demonstrate this generator for you, and then we'll demonstrate the motor, while we're running, while we're operating, we have to go at low RPMs because of the power in this school building is not exactly right for what we need to do. And if we ran it at high RPMs, we can do that, but if we run it at high RPMs, we will start busting all the bulbs in here. So every one of these bulbs will start popping because the voltage is going to be way above 115 volts. So as we keep running it, then we would start sending shrapnel out into the crowd here. We could do it like a Gallagher show, but we didn't have any of those little tarps or anything people could put over their face. So we just chose not to send shrapnel out to the crowd. So bear with us. We think that it's in your advantage for us not to do that. And we are going to be running it, but we'll run it at the lower RPM. But what we want to show you is that while it's running, making electricity, he will take one of these modules out, show you the module, and then we'll put the module back in to show you that we don't need all of the modules running together to be making electricity. Okay, and so that's what we're going to do for you. We're going to demonstrate the flexibility of this generator. It is a completely serviceable generator. Now, also when he takes this out, what he'll have to do, we don't have these with the little finger screws on them, and so he's going to use a wrench to take them out because for the show here, this is our prototype model, and for a finished product, we'd have it in there where you just pop them in and pop them out. But for now, we'll just unscrew it, and so he'll unscrew it for you as we're running, and he'll take it out, you can see it, and it's still producing electricity. Then he'll pop it right back in again for you and show you it's the most serviceable generator that's ever been invented in the history of the world. Easily repaired as we operate. Ready to go? Okay, they're going to run it at low RPM. Now, we got an RPM gauge here too. Here we have an RPM gauge, and while he's doing this, you can see the RPMs. It'll be running at probably about 300 or 400 RPMs. Is that about all we can go? It's about 300-400 RPMs. It'll still be making electricity. When is the last time you saw a generator that's making electricity at 300 RPMs? 1600, 1800, 3600, but not 300. And so you'll see that's very unique because this generator will make electricity at the low end and the high end. The higher you take it, the more it makes. The lower you take it, the less it makes. And so it'll be lighting some lights with only 300 RPMs. And that's a very, very, very unique demonstration. Okay, you ready? It's got to get calibrated there. 380, we had a 380. What do you got on top of here? 390, okay. So it'll get smoothed out. There you go, 380. You get a reading every once in a while. It's lighting the lights now at 380 RPMs, 377. Just at these low RPMs, it just reads sporadically. 377. Now we're making light. He's now removing one of the modules. So as he takes the module out, it's still making light. This would be you saw an LED light go off and you said, okay, I better repair that. If we were selling electricity with this right now, what would happen is our indicators, our computers would tell us we're down in output. Right there is the windings. That's the windings of the motor. You see the windings? That's the windings of this motor. So to repair those, all you do is take them out. You got an empty hole. Then you just put them right back in again, no problem. Then you put it back in, it starts generating electricity again. You can see the spark in that if you looked in close in that as you put it in. It starts making electricity again, no problem. It doesn't, you never, ever, ever have to shut this generator down to make electricity. Now this one right here has been tested. Thank you. Thank you. You got it. This has been tested to put out 30 kilowatts of electricity. So this size generator, 35 inches square, puts out 30 kilowatts of electricity. Now if we had this unit at your house, it would put out 30. And the motor in the back is whining because we just got a motor. It's a brand new motor, and it has a bearing loose. And so you can hear the bearing in there about to go out in it. We got to take it back and let them service it. Brand new ball door motor, bearing is loose. But normally it would run quiet. You wouldn't have the noise because the motor doesn't really make a lot of noise. When you see this one run here, you'll see that it doesn't make a whole lot of noise either. Okay, hey, thanks a lot, guys. Thank you. So there is a very, 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 very flexible motor, generator. It is the most unique generator in the world, but it also makes electricity at any RPM, all the way up through the spectrum. That same unit, if we build it 8 feet square instead of 4 feet square, will produce 500 kilowatts of electricity. We've done all the testing, we've got all the data. We can get 30 kilowatts with this one. We can get 500 kilowatts with an 8-foot square instead of this 34-inch square. Now, hold that thought, because we're going to get into showing you a thing that we lovingly refer to as the power wagon. Something where we can put out a lot of firepower on a 45-foot trailer using this same exact technology, just in a bigger array. Now the next thing that I want to show you is the driver motor that would run it. If I can get you guys to just come back over here for a minute, Mark, and get Rick and all the firepower here if he's available. If we could turn that back again, because I'd like to make another point here. I want you guys to see this from the side angle. Yeah, take your time there. Yeah, you just got one guy on this side. Hold off. We just got one guy in the back there, so one person in the back, so you got to move that one first. Where'd Ricky go? Have him come and go. Tell Ricky hang around. It's only 2 hours. Yeah, I think he's getting tired. I wore him out over the last 2 days. Okay, I want to show you this because I want you to be able to compare here. That's almost got it there. Maybe one more shot. I want you to be able to get, now watch, Rick will come here exactly as you get that last shot done. You watch. Old Rick will be coming up. Here he is. Is he coming? Hold it. You guys are almost done. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Okay, that's good. That's it. Okay, don't need you, Rick. I do get my licks back in, Rick. Now, so what was the motor that just drove this generator, or that would drive this generator? This is a 40 horsepower motor. Now, this is a conventional motor. This is what conventional science would give you. This 40 horsepower is driving this big generator right here. 40 horses. Believe me, that's very, very heavy. Nobody's going to pick this thing up. Even Rick isn't going to pick that one up. This right here is the motor that got here an hour ago on a 2,000 mile ride. This is our 50 horsepower Hummingbird motor. So this is 50 horsepower, this is 40 horsepower, just to give you an idea about the size. This one right here, believe me, I would never do this with the other one. $50 horsepower. And if you notice that the back plate on here is the same size of the whole motor here. So imagine this motor mounted up here on this, and that right there. That motor and that generator is a home unit that will produce 30 kilowatts of electricity. How efficient will it produce those 30 kilowatts of electricity? Let's come over here and see how efficient this motor really is. You ready here, Rick? You're going to have to come for this anyway. Okay, now this motor right here is the Hummingbird motor. This is a very, very, very unique one. We had this already set up and ready to go before Ron got here finally with the 50 horsepower on his Odyssey, on his ride. So we're going to let Ron run this motor too, because he just rigged it up just now out of the back end of his car. He just got it here. So we'll show you the 50 horsepower does indeed run, and it's variable. We'll show you how variable it is. But over here we're set up to show you a 10 horsepower motor, test it, and even do some data on it so that you can see how much power is going into it from the 12 volt batteries. We have 8 12 volt batteries, 100 volts of electricity, actually 96 volts. So if we're feeding power into this at 96 volts, it's DC, that's DC batteries. It would be volts times amps equals watts. Volts times amps equals watts. So if you got 100 volts and you had 1 amp, how many watts would you be using? 100 watts. If you had 2 amps, 200 watts, etc. So we can measure how many amps we're drawing, and what we're going to do is do something very unique. We're measuring the power coming from the battery through this line right here. At the end of the show, if you want to come up and look at this and see that it's going from the battery, this is the only line from the battery. That's why we put the red tape around it. And it goes then into controller. So if we measure the power on this line with an amp probe, we can say, okay, we got X amount of amps going from the battery into this whole motor. Then we got a line coming from the motor back to a shunt. When it hits this shunt, it's going from the shunt back to the batteries. This is a shunt so that we can measure the power on the other side. I'm going to let my assistant tell you how we measure the power on that side.
All right, the shunt is a 50 millivolt, 50 amp shunt. So each millivolt of voltage drop across the shunt equals 1 amp. So if you see 1 amp or 1.5 amp, that's 1.5 millivolt, that's 1.5 amp.
Okay, so it's a 1-to-1 ratio, millivolts to amps. So whatever this says in millivolts back across this shunt is how many millivolts that are what? Going back from the motor toward the battery. So we're feeding from the battery, going back toward the battery, because believe it or not, contrary to conventional wisdom, this unit right here, and we do have data with this on scopes, you can get that available. We did a tour with this on a scope. We are feeding power back and forth. We got a DC source coming to this motor, and this motor is sending power back to the source. That is an AC wave. So we're getting AC power from DC source. It's flowing both directions, alternating current. So as it flows in, we measure it here. As it flows back, we measure it here. Now, wouldn't it be then, if you had a source of X and you were sending back Y, that X minus Y was what the motor was using? If you were sending 1 to the motor, or say 2 to the motor and getting 1 back, how many would the motor be using? 1. So actually what you would do to measure this is you would measure the power flowing in. So we'll take a reading on that. Then you would measure the power flowing back. We'll take a reading on that. And the difference between those two is the amount of amperage that we're using. We all know the voltage, it's 100 volts because you got 8 12 volt batteries here, 96 volts. So we'll turn this on and we'll do that. Now we're also going to light the lights. We're going to put a load on this because right here, this is a little 10 horsepower motor. Has anyone here ever seen a 10 horsepower motor before, a conventional one? How big is it? And this right here is a 10 horsepower motor. Isn't that a whole lot smaller? That's a lot smaller than any normal 10 horsepower motor. And so this is a 10 horsepower motor. Now it will easily run this 4 kilowatt generator. So we have a 4 kilowatt generator, and we have 4 rows of 10 light bulbs, 100 watts per bulb. So 4 rows of 10 100 watt light bulbs. That's 4 kilowatts of electricity. This little 10 horsepower motor is going to be making 4 kilowatts of electricity, and we're going to see with our own eyes the amount of electricity that it is using to do that. Okay? Okay, there's the reading. Okay, we got a reading of 1.0. Anyway, go ahead, run it up, ramp it up a little. Go ahead and ramp it up. Now he's going to ramp it on up. Now he just lit the lights. Actually, we are, now it's coming down. You see it coming down? So it was up there that just came right down. As soon as it gets past a certain RPM, it comes down. Now where's it at right now? Can you read it?
You gotta move your thumb.
Can you read it?
No, hold it. Angle it up more.
Say it, like that?
No, the other way. Turn the red part up and the...
Red part up. How about like that? Can
yeah,
you read
that's perfect right there.
2.3. Okay, here you go. What does it say? How much? 1.2? Okay, this was 2.1 or 2.3, and that one's 1.2. So 2.3 is coming from here, going into the motor. 1.2 is coming back again. I just moved it. 1.2 is coming back again to the batteries. So if we're taking and we're lighting four rows of light bulbs, 100-watt light bulbs. Now, that would be 1 amp difference, right? 1 amp difference at 100 volts is how many watts? Somebody got it? 1 amp at 100 volts. I want to get over here if I have to pull that thing off. One of these light bulbs right here is a 100-watt light bulb. 1 amp at 100 volts is 100 watts. So here's the point. You see the power it takes to light that light bulb? That's how much power that motor is drawing from the battery. Do you see the light bulbs that are lit? 40. If you're drawing enough power to light one light bulb and you're lighting 40 light bulbs, what's the relationship? 40 to 1. That's good enough, Rick. Now, you would say, any scientist would say, you're out of your ever-loving mind. There's no way in the world you can be drawing 100 watts of power to getting 4 kilowatts of energy. You can't do it. Because there isn't enough power in these batteries that you could be doing this. And so how could you possibly do this on these 12-volt batteries? Well, it's real simple for you to do it because the power isn't coming from the 12-volt batteries. Where is the power coming from to make this motor run? We all know that there's no such thing as energy being created or destroyed, so it's not like we're just getting it from nowhere. It has to be coming from somewhere, and that's exactly right. It's coming from the magnets. So the power of the magnets inside this motor are actually taking energy from magnetic forces, just permanent magnets that always are magnetic. How long does a permanent magnet stay magnetized? Permanently. Well, we had one guy today, Walt today, was talking about the batteries that he's using are good for 99 years. So for 99 years, you could be sitting here and running, and then somewhere along the line, you're going to have to change the batteries. I mean, the magnets in the motor. So 99 years from now, you're going to have to turn it in. So it will sit and run and run and run and run and run with a little amount of energy in and a large amount of energy out. Now, what I'll do is have Ron just come here. If he's available there, we'll have him come out and turn on this motor here, unless you can, Rick. Is Ron around? Because Ron should be getting some sleep. Is Ron around? He's in the bathroom? Okay, I timed that one perfect. I tell you what, no problem. A guy that just drives 40 hours straight through without sleeping and gets here just to get the motor to us. So we just did get this motor. I think I'd feel more comfortable though having Ron run the motor. So we'll wait for him for a minute. If somebody go get him, somebody go to get him? Yeah. Okay, then we'll wait for him for a minute and we'll let Ron himself come out. Now Ron, when he comes out, you will see a scientist, a world-class scientist. No, this man knows 7-syllable words, let me tell you. When he starts talking to you, boy, you're like, whew, man, my brain, I just can't handle all these big words. He's in a doctor frock, and he is a thermodynamicist and a specialist, and I mean, wait until you see him. And so Ron is going to come out now and he'll run his motor for you. Let me tell you something. Scientist is what? What is a scientist? Does a scientist have to have a white frock on? Does a scientist have to have gone to college? Does a scientist have to have studied the latest theories of electrodynamics? No. In my estimation, a scientist is a person who talks to God, or who God talks to. I believe that God is the author of all creativity, and God will reveal things to people, sometimes the least of people, so that he can use that to confound the wise. And let me tell you something, a lot of the people who get involved in these technologies do not have master's degrees or doctoral degrees in anything. There are people who have discussed this, who have discovered things, who God has revealed things to, who have just worked on these things, technical people, people who work on them night and day, who work on them like Ron has for 20 years, and you study a problem for a 20-year period of time and you want to solve it. It doesn't really matter what anybody else says can or can't happen. Sometimes it's dramatically to your advantage that you don't know what can happen, because then you can make it happen. I developed the world's most efficient heat pump. I did that. I did that with no degrees in science whatsoever. I did it because I was a salesman. I was looking for a low-cost energy system. I was looking for a better solar unit because Jimmy Carter was throwing money away. I was a salesman, and I got the idea that if you have a heat pump, why not take a heat pump, build it into a solar collector, and use a heat pump in the middle of the night to take energy from the sun to heat your house. I was looking for a unique unit. It didn't matter if it ran very well or if it was the most efficient thing on the planet. As long as it could be making energy in the middle of the night, I had an advantage over somebody else selling my system. I didn't know when I went to sell that system, to make that system, that the refrigeration paradigm says you have to have 1 horsepower of compression to 1 ton of refrigerant to 1 ton of condenser. I didn't know that. It was 1 ton, 1 horsepower, 1 ton. I didn't know. So you had a ton of evaporation, horsepower of compression, ton of condenser. You had to have that. That's the refrigeration paradigm. I didn't know that. So I went out and I got the biggest evaporator I could find. We filled the whole roof of a house with solar panels so we could run Freon through the middle of it and let it evaporate across the roof. We said, how much do we need? I said, I don't know, but as long as you got any roof left, put one up there. We filled the whole roof with them. And then we ran back down to the compressor that we had in a heat pump. It was a 2 horsepower compressor. It's the only one we had. So we said, okay, use that one. So you got a 2 horsepower compressor. How much condenser do you need? We didn't know. We went down to a refrigeration supply house and said, we need a condenser. What size condenser do you need? I don't know. What's the biggest condenser that you got? Well, look, you got to at least know what your vapor pressures are. You got to at least know what your thermodynamic cycles are, how much you're trying to put through it, what your temperatures are going to be. And I said, you don't have to cuss at me. We got cash. We can afford it. I said, just give me the biggest one that you got. He said, well, I got a 6 ton sitting out there. And I said, oh, we'll never carry that. He says, it doesn't weigh 6 tons, dummy. You just put 6 tons of refrigerant through it. He says, you can get that in the back of your vehicle. We said, so great, we'll take it. We took it down and we put it down, a 6 ton. We have a 2 horsepower compressor. How big should it have been? A 2 ton. 2 horsepower, 2 ton. We turned that thing on. We didn't know how much refrigerant to put into it, so we just started dumping refrigerant in. We got the biggest bottle they had, a 50-pound bottle of refrigerant. You put 7 pounds in a 5 horsepower compressor. We put 50 pounds in our 2 horsepower compressor. We had it flooded through the middle of the system. We just kept flooding it, and I said, well, just keep flooding it until it runs. How do we know? Well, just as soon as it runs, we know we got enough. That thing took off, started running just as the 50-pound bottle ran out, thank God, because it had all that evaporator to go through. And it started running, and it started making heat, and it started making hot water, and that was it. That was all the science that went into that. Do you know that that system revolutionized the heat pump industry? It revolutionized it. It rewrote the whole book on the heat pump industry. How? It did it because we were proving that you didn't need 1 ton, 1 horsepower, 1 ton. We later on found that we can put 6 tons with 2 horsepowers with 6 tons, and we can compress 3 or 4 times as much Freon as they could with a 1 ton compressor. And I wound up getting energy, 1 unit of energy in for 12 units of energy out on a refrigeration system, while General Electric couldn't get any more than 1 in for 5 or 6 out max. What was the difference between me and General Electric? They knew what the book said, I didn't. That was the whole difference. And if you don't know what the book says, then you don't know. And that's how a lot of this stuff gets done. Ron, I got a whole audience of people here, and I know you're tired, but what I thought we might do is run that 50 horsepower.
I had to go give me a painkiller for this shoulder. It was just killing me.
But, you okay? You gonna be all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, in 15 minutes or so, it should, with 1,000 milligrams of hydrocortisone, it should quit hurting. We'll always swear that it should have.
Well, we got a big old belt of something back there too, probably. Okay, now this is the 50 horsepower here. Now this just got bounced 2,000 miles and Ron just came in. There we go. Okay, there's this 50 horsepower motor right here, same size. That would be the driver, just as efficient as the one we just tested. That one was set up to test. Exactly the same technology. And so over there you were seeing this input to output over here that was incredible. You would have that technology connected to that generator. And so here you are, and you can vary it. Ron can show you right here that if you even wanted to do something exotic like put this onto a car, he can show you how effective this can be. That's the foot feed. Now he went for it.
But the nice part about it is, it behaves like a regular gasoline engine. That's what I tried to do, is to duplicate it so that it would behave so that the little old lady from Pasadena wouldn't have to go to school to learn how to drive an electric car. Well, it drives just like a regular gasoline car. Just step on it and go.
Thanks a lot, Ron.
But see, I had a problem working this out. I even put circuits in here so that the reverse, in case that somebody wanted to use reverse on here to back up, which I did in a Sport Fury one time. I met this guy going down the highway. He was doing 50 miles an hour in the opposite direction. So I stomped on the brakes, hit reverse, and outrun him. And when I come around to him backwards, he liked to run off the road, scared the hell out of me. He says, "Don't ever do that to me again." Well, I got to thinking that somebody could be as crazy as I am and try to go full speed in reverse. So I put a place for a relay in here in the event that we was to hook this up for using the motor for reverse instead of using the transmission with the low speed. Why, they couldn't achieve 50 miles an hour in reverse and drive out the backside of the barn. You know, it could happen.
Okay, yeah.
You try to make everything as safe as you can, because the saying that I've used is we try to make it idiot-proof. And in making things idiot-proof, sometimes they have to be a little bit hard to make a mistake with. But on the other hand, we keep people from killing each other too accidentally.
Yeah, well, thanks a million for running it for us. So you got a foot feed right here. You can drive this up or down based upon the foot feed, just like you would drive a normal car engine. So if you have any ideas about that, like possibly sometime throwing that into a car, that's hold that thought. That's where we're headed. Also, putting on the back end of this right over here so that you can run a generator, you can provide 30 kilowatts of electricity at your house. Hold that thought too, because that's exactly where we're going there too. I'm gonna let you get some sleep, Ron. Or do you? Yep. Yeah, go ahead and get some sleep, buddy. So now, the old electric motor.
Got the alternator, the vacuum pump, and the power steering pump.
Yep.
So everything in the car will work.
Everything in the car goes. And there we go, down the road. Down the road, Charles Perrault. Now let's reason together. If you've got a motor over here that you can put use the amount of electricity through the batteries to light that light bulb right there, and yet you're lighting all of those light bulbs, where in the world would you get the power to have that motor continually run? Couldn't you just put some of the power that you have there right back into the process? That's exactly what we are doing. And over here, and we're putting together the technology right now to do that, to take the excess power back from this, put it right back into the process, and it just sits there and runs and runs and runs. Then that little motor right here, sitting right up here, because we didn't know that Ron would be able to make it here, so we couldn't mount that one here now. And that is the home unit that we're talking about. So that motor on that generator, and what does that mean? That means that I've never seen these motors run hot. I've never. You feel them, they don't get hot. And so that motor up there is an incredibly serviceable motor, and you're running on a generator that all you got to do is just, anytime it runs out of poop with one of the windings, just pop the windings out and pop another winding in. So that unit will produce 30 kilowatts of electricity. That's the unit that we intend to put on people's houses. We may put up something here that's a little smaller than this, that produces less kilowatts than that.